the restaurant he dined at every Friday, the beach house he bragged about to his friends, the consulting firm he believed he had built from nothing. None of it was his. Not one single thing. There is a kind of silence that heals. There is a kind of silence that protects. And then there is the silence I chose that Thanksgiving evening, the silence that comes before the storm. My name is Harold Brennan. I am 68 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I understood what it meant to be a father. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Newark, New Jersey. My father worked double shifts at a manufacturing plant until his back gave out when he was 52. My mother cleaned houses for families who never learned her first name. Everything I have, everything I built, came from watching them sacrifice without complaint and swear that their son would never have to do the same. I started my first business at 23, a small property management company with exactly 2 clients and a desk I bought at a garage sale. By 35, I owned 12 apartment buildings across northern New Jersey. By 50, I had quietly accumulated commercial real estate worth more than $40 million. I say quietly because that was always my way. No flashy cars, no expensive suits. I drove a 10-year-old Honda Accord and lived in the same modest house in Montclair that I bought when my son was born. My son, Derek. I need to tell you about Derek. When his mother and I divorced, he was 14, old enough to understand, young enough to be devastated. Patricia, my ex-wife, remarried within 2 years. A man named Vincent Caruso, sales executive. Perfect teeth, the kind of confident handshake that made you check your wallet afterward. I never badmouthed Vincent to my son. I never badmouthed Patricia. I paid child support that was triple what the court ordered. I showed up to every baseball game, every school play, every parent-teacher conference. And when Derek graduated from college with a business degree and dreams of starting his own consulting firm, I did what any father would do. I helped him, but I did it wrong. I see that now. I helped him in a way that let him believe he did not need help at all. You see, Derek had ambition but not patience. He had ideas but not discipline. When he launched Brennan Strategic Consulting at 26, he had no clients, no reputation, and no understanding of how brutal the business world could be. I watched him struggle for 6 months. I watched the confidence drain from his eyes, and I could not bear it. So I made a decision. I created a shell company called Ridgeway Holdings. Through Ridgeway, I became Derek's first client. A contract worth $200,000 a year for strategic consulting services that I did not need. I referred 3 of my property managers to hire him as well. I paid their invoices through a separate account so Derek would never see my name attached to any of it. When Derek wanted to expand and needed office space, I bought a building through another LLC and offered him a lease at half the market rate. When he needed a larger operating budget, I arranged for a business loan through a bank where I happened to know the president. I personally guaranteed the loan. Derek never knew. The beach house in Cape May that he purchased 3 years ago for his family. I owned the neighboring property through yet another company. When the beach house came on the market, I made sure the seller accepted Derek's offer by agreeing to cover the difference between his bid and what the property was actually worth. For 15 years, I built an invisible scaffolding around my son's life. I told myself I was protecting him. I told myself I was giving him the foundation my own father could never provide. I told myself that eventually, when he was established and secure, I would step back and let him stand on his own. I was lying to myself. The truth is, I was afraid that if Derek failed, he would blame me for the divorce, afraid that if he struggled, he would turn to Vincent, his stepfather, instead of me, afraid that I would lose him completely. So I kept building, and Derek kept believing he was a self-made success. He married a woman named Kristen when he was 32. She came from money, old money, the kind of family that summered in the Hamptons and wintered in Aspen. I think Kristen looked at Derek and saw potential. A young entrepreneur with a growing company and a bright future. She did not see the puppet strings. Neither did he. They had 2 children, my grandchildren. Emma, now 7, and Lucas, now 5. I loved those children more than I could express. I attended every birthday party, every holiday gathering, every school event. I played the role of the modest grandfather, the simple man who drove an old car and wore clothes from J.C. Penney. Nobody questioned it. Nobody looked too closely. Until Thanksgiving. It was Patricia's idea to have the whole family together. Her house in Short Hills, the one Vincent bought when his company went public, and he cashed out his stock options. Marble countertops, 6 bedrooms, a wine cellar. The kind of house that announces itself before you even walk through the door. I did not want to go. But Emma and Lucas had asked for Grandpa Harold specifically, and I could never say no to those children. The dinner started well enough. Turkey, stuffing, all the traditional dishes. Patricia sat at one end of the table, Vincent at the other, Derek and Kristen across from me, the children at a smaller table nearby. I kept quiet mostly, listening to the conversation, watching my son hold court about his latest business ventures. He had been drinking since noon. I could tell by the volume of his voice, the looseness of his gestures. Derek always became a different person when he drank. Louder, more aggressive, more desperate to prove something. The conversation turned to money. It always did with Vincent. "Vincent," he leaned back in his chair. "So, Derek," he said, "I hear you just landed another big contract. That Hartley account, very impressive." Derek smiled. The Hartley account was worth $250,000. What Derek did not know was that Richard Hartley was a golf buddy of mine. I had suggested the introduction 6 months earlier. "Yeah," Derek said, "we are really hitting our stride now. The company is on track to break $2 million in revenue this year." Vincent nodded. "Not bad. Not bad at all." Of course, he glanced at me with a smirk. Not everyone at this table can say the same. I felt the shift in the room, the way Patricia stiffened, the way Kristen suddenly became very interested in her mashed potatoes. Derek laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Come on, Vince," Derek said. "Go easy on the old man. He did his best with what he had." I set down my fork. I looked at my son. His cheeks were flushed from the wine. His eyes had that glazed quality I had seen too many times before. "What do you mean by that?" I asked. Derek shrugged. "I mean, no offense, Dad, but let us be honest here. You worked your whole life, and what do you have to show for it? A house that has not been updated since the 90s. A car that belongs in a junkyard." Meanwhile, he gestured around the dining room. "Look at what Vincent built. Look at what I built. Some people just have what it takes, and some people do not." I said nothing. I simply looked at him. Derek took another sip of wine. "I know you tried, Dad. I really do. But not everyone is cut out for success. Some people are just meant to be ordinary." The table was silent. Even the children at their small table had stopped talking. Patricia cleared her throat. "Derek, maybe we should change the subject." "No," Derek said. He leaned forward. "I think Dad needs to hear this, because I have been carrying this for a long time, and I am tired of pretending." He pointed at Vincent. "You see this man?" Derek said. "This man taught me more about business in one conversation than you taught me in my entire childhood. This man showed me what real ambition looks like, what real success looks like." "And what did you show me, Dad?" "How to clip coupons, how to drive a car until the wheels fall off." "Derek," Kristen whispered, "that is enough." But Derek was not finished. He stood up from his chair. "You want to know the truth?" Derek said. "I used to be embarrassed to bring friends home because of you. I used to lie about what you did for a living because saying my dad is a property manager sounded so pathetic compared to everyone else's fathers. And now I have to sit here and watch you eat Thanksgiving dinner at Vincent's table, in Vincent's house, while you contribute nothing to this family except your presence." I remember the exact moment, the way the candlelight flickered, the way Emma looked up from her table with confusion in her eyes, the way my own son looked at me with something that was not anger, not resentment, but something worse. "Pity. You are a good man, Dad," Derek said. "But good does not pay the bills. Good does not build legacies. Good does not matter." He sat back down. He picked up his wine glass, and he toasted Vincent. "To the men who actually made something of themselves." I excused myself from the table. I walked outside into the cold November air. I stood on Vincent's perfectly manicured lawn, and I looked up at the stars. And I made a decision. It took me 3 days to contact my lawyer. His name was Bernard Chen. We had worked together for over 20 years. He knew every company I owned, every account I controlled, every string I had attached to my son's life. "Harold," Bernard said when I finished explaining what I wanted, "are you sure about this? Once you start, there is no going back." "I am sure," I said. Bernard nodded slowly. "Then let us begin." The first step was Ridgeway Holdings, my original shell company, the one that had been paying Derek $200,000 a year for consulting services he never actually provided. I drafted a termination letter, effective immediately, no explanation given. The second step was the 3 property management referrals. I contacted each one personally. I thanked them for their years of service to my son's company, and I informed them that due to restructuring, their contracts would not be renewed. That was $400,000 of Derek's annual revenue, gone in a single week. But I was just getting started. The office building, where Derek's company was headquartered, I owned it through an LLC called Coastal Properties. Derek's lease was up for renewal in 2 months. I instructed my property manager to send a notice. Due to planned renovations, the building would no longer be available for commercial tenants. Derek would need to vacate by January 15th. The beach house in Cape May. I contacted the real buyer, the one whose offer I had secretly supplemented to help Derek afford the property. Under the terms of our private agreement, I had retained a silent lien on the house, a lien that became due in full if Derek ever defaulted on certain conditions, conditions that I now had the power to enforce. The business loan that Derek used to expand his company, the one I had personally guaranteed. I contacted my friend at the bank. I explained that I would be withdrawing my guarantee. Without my backing, the bank would need to call the loan immediately. Each step was legal. Each step was documented. Each step was something I had built into the structure from the very beginning, just in case. I never imagined I would actually use these provisions. I never imagined my son would give me a reason to, but he had, and I was done pretending. Bernard called me after the first week. "It is happening fast," he said. "Derek's accountant has been calling everywhere trying to figure out what is going on. The bank is demanding repayment of the loan within 60 days. The landlord is enforcing the lease termination, and his 3 biggest clients have all canceled their contracts." I closed my eyes. "How is he handling it?" "Not well," Bernard said. "Word is, he has been drinking heavily. Kristen took the kids to her parents' house. She does not understand what is happening." "Neither does Derek," I said. "Not yet." The second week, Derek called me. "Dad," his voice was shaky. "Something is wrong. Everything is falling apart. My clients are leaving. The bank is calling in my loan. I am losing the office, the beach house, everything. I do not understand what is happening." I listened. I said nothing. "Dad, are you there?" "I am here," I said. "Can you help me?" Derek asked. "I know I said some things at Thanksgiving. I was drunk. I was stupid. But I need help, Dad. I am drowning." I took a long breath. "Do you remember what you said to me?" I asked. "You said good does not pay the bills. You said good does not build legacies. You said good does not matter." "Dad, I did not mean it." "Yes, you did," I said. "You meant every word. And now I am going to show you something. I am going to show you exactly how much good has mattered in your life." "What are you talking about?" "Come to my house tomorrow," I said. 10 o'clock. "Come alone, and I will explain everything." I hung up the phone. Derek arrived at 9:45. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. His expensive coat hung loose on his frame, as if he had lost weight in just 2 weeks. I led him into my study, the small room where I kept my files, my records, my secrets. I sat behind my desk. He sat across from me. I pulled out a folder, the first of many. "Ridgeway Holdings," I said. I opened the folder and turned it so he could see. "This is the company that has been paying you $200,000 a year for consulting services. Services you never actually provided. Services no one ever needed. Derek stared at the documents. His face went pale. I do not understand, he whispered. Ridgeway Holdings is my company, I said. I created it when you were 26 years old. I became your first client because you had no clients. Because your business was failing after 6 months and I could not stand to watch you give up. I pulled out another folder. These are the contracts from your 3 biggest clients, the property management firms. I referred them to you. I paid their invoices through separate accounts so you would never see my name. Another folder. Your office building. I own it. I have owned it for 8 years. I gave you a lease at half the market rate because you could not afford anything else. Another folder. Your beach house. The seller accepted your offer because I paid the difference between what you offered and what the property was worth. I retained a lien that I never intended to enforce. Until now. Another folder. Your business loan. The bank approved it because I personally guaranteed every dollar. Without my backing, you would never have qualified. I closed the last folder. I leaned back in my chair. Everything you have, I said quietly. Everything you thought you built, I built for you. Every success you celebrated, I engineered. Every milestone you achieved, I funded. You are not a self-made man, Derek. You never were. Derek sat frozen. His hands trembled in his lap. Why? He managed. Why did you do this? Because I loved you, I said. Because when your mother and I divorced, I was terrified of losing you. I thought if I could just give you enough success, enough security, enough reasons to be proud, you would never turn away from me. I thought I was protecting you. I paused. But I was not protecting you, I said. I was crippling you. I was teaching you that success comes without effort, that achievement comes without sacrifice. I was building a man who could stand tall only because I was holding him up. And the moment I let go, he collapsed. Derek's eyes filled with tears. Dad, he said, you called me a loser, I said. You said I contributed nothing. You said good does not matter. And all this time, I was the only thing keeping your entire life from falling apart. I stood up. I am not doing this to punish you, I said. I am not doing this out of anger or revenge. I am doing this because I finally understand what a real father is supposed to do. A real father does not build his son's life for him. A real father teaches his son how to build his own. I walked to the window. I have withdrawn all my support, I said. The contracts, the lease, the loan guarantee, everything. You are on your own now. For the first time in your adult life, you will have to face reality without my invisible hand guiding you through it. Derek buried his face in his hands. I cannot do this, he whispered. I do not know how. Then learn, I said. That is what I should have told you 15 years ago. Learn, struggle, fail, get back up, and maybe, just maybe, you will become the man I always hoped you would be. I walked back to my desk. I pulled out one final document. This is a letter, I said. It explains everything I just told you. The companies, the shell corporations, the secret support. I want you to read it carefully. I want you to understand exactly what I did and why I did it. And then I want you to decide what kind of man you want to be. Derek took the letter with shaking hands. What if I cannot do it? He asked. What if I fail? Then you fail, I said. And that is okay. Failure is not the end. Failure is just the beginning of something real, something earned, something true. Derek looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Do you still love me? He asked. I felt my own eyes burn. I never stopped, I said. That is why I'm doing this. Because love without limits is not love. It is enabling. And I enabled you for far too long. Derek left my house that morning with the letter in his hand and tears on his face. I watched him drive away in his leased BMW, knowing that within a month he would probably lose that too. And I felt, for the first time in 15 years, like I had finally done the right thing. The aftermath was difficult. Derek's company collapsed within 60 days. He lost the beach house, the office, the clients, everything I had built for him. Kristen, to her credit, stayed. She told me later that watching Derek hit bottom was the hardest thing she had ever witnessed. But she also said it was the first time she had seen the real Derek. Not the arrogant man with the wine glass in his hand, but the scared, broken man underneath. A man who could finally be rebuilt. Vincent and Patricia called me shortly after the news spread. Vincent was furious. He accused me of sabotaging my own son. He accused me of jealousy, of pettiness, of cruelty. I listened to his tirade without interrupting. When he finished, I said only one thing. "Ask Derek," I said. "Ask him if he thinks I did the right thing." Vincent never called me again. 6 months later, Derek came to see me. He looked different, older, somehow, but also clearer. He had taken a job as a project manager at a small real estate firm. Entry level, modest salary. Nothing like the life he had known before. "I want to apologize," he said. "For what I said at Thanksgiving. For the way I treated you. For all of it." I nodded. "I understand now," he said. "What you did for me, and what I threw away. I was so busy being proud of myself that I never stopped to wonder where any of it came from. I just assumed I deserved it." "And now?" I asked. "Now I know better," he said. "Now I am building something real. It is small. It is hard. But it is mine. Actually mine. And for the first time in my life, I understand what that means." I smiled. "That is all I ever wanted," I said. Derek hugged me. It was the first time he had hugged me in years. Really hugged me, not the obligatory embrace at holidays. "Thank you," he whispered, "for loving me enough to let me fail." I held my son. I thought about my father, working double shifts until his back gave out. I thought about my mother, cleaning houses for families who never knew her name. I thought about all the years I had spent trying to give Derek what they could not give me. And I finally understood. The greatest gift is not protection. It is not comfort. It is not success handed down on a silver platter. The greatest gift is the chance to become who you are meant to be, even if it hurts, even if it breaks you first. Because what rises from the ashes is not the same person who fell. It is someone better, someone stronger, someone real. I am 68 years old. I drive a 10-year-old Honda Accord. I live in a modest house in Montclair, and I am the proudest father in the world, not because of what my son has, but because of who my son is becoming. And that, I have learned, is the only legacy that matters.